Today's topic is communication, managing up, down, and around. But I was sharing a story about when we went back to 20 plus years ago, and this guy comes in every single day, smiling every single day, and all of a sudden doesn't show up. I finally get him on the phone, and he says, "I quit." And so now I'm a little concerned, and he says, "I'm having a nervous breakdown, and I can't come in anymore." And so now, because of the psychiatric piece, I'm feeling a little concerned that it's slightly above my head. But I said, we have services, I can help out, what can I do for you? And he said, I don't want to talk to it. In fact, he was getting angry. And he said, I don't want to talk about this. But managing down, I wanted to make sure that he felt the support and he knew that I was there to help him. He said, there's nothing you can do to help him. I said, fine, there's health pieces in this, and now we're walking down a fine line that a manager can't be asking these questions. So I said, I just want you to know that we can offer assistance if you need to. And after a while, we got that connection back. And he said, fine, you really want to know what's going on? My girlfriend broke up with me. I said, well, I'm about 25, and I've had that happen to me a lot, so now I can really help. He said, no, you don't understand. I said, what do you mean? I've broken up with a lot of times. He said, no, you don't understand. She's the voice of the bank. And I said, what do you mean? She is that voice prompt you hear every single time the phone rings. And it will say, hi, this is blah, blah, blah. Imagine taking every single phone call and hearing your ex-girlfriend in your ear. At this point, I said, I understand. What is the point of this story? Today's conversation is about managing up, down, and around.
There is. You were able to develop a bond with an associate to get them to a point where they felt comfortable enough to open up with you and explain their concern. Work.
So there was a relationship that was built. There was still some conflict in there, but we were still able to get past the conflict, being respectful and listening and understanding what was going on, and finally getting to a point where you understand you can't solve everything. No matter how much you try to manage up, down, and around, there are going to be situations where you can't do it effectively, and the only 3 words I have for you is get over it. You just have to put the effort in to fix it. And what you'll find is that communication will allow you to effectively do that. It will teach you to effectively manage up, down. The question is, if you run through a wall and you looked over your shoulder, would someone follow you? My old manager asked me that once. If you ran through that wall right now, how many people would be right behind you? And boy, did that question hit me square in the eyes. Because the answer was, I don't know. And if the answer is, I don't know, then we have a real problem. Because then you have a relationship and communication problem with the people that you work for, you work with, and people who work for you. I was once described with an analogy. It's like swimming in the main oceans when you work for Tom. You jump in and boy, there's shock and it's cold and you don't want to be there. But after a while you get kind of comfortable there. It grows on. But your body does grow numb. But if you get to a point where you're numb, or I have to work that hard to get to that end result, there's something that's going on in between. I used to say with every single person I sat down with, new hires, or people that would come to my team, or I would go to a new team, I would simply say, one-on-one, you don't need to trust me, you don't need to like me, and you don't need to respect me. I have to earn that from you. Now, that comment was always misinterpreted. He doesn't like me, he doesn't trust me, and he doesn't respect me. But what was the point of having that conversation?
Those things aren't just there on the inception of the partnership. You have to earn it, you have to work for it.
So as leaders, we have to work hard. It's not candy that's just handed to you. You have to earn that respect and earn that trust. And it used to just be words from me until after many years of getting knocked in the head and realizing that I don't want to throw you into the ocean. I want to throw you into some bath water, and that'll be nice and comfy. Because if we work well together, then the company will be better. And guess what? At the end of the day, I will become a little bit more successful. I once had an old manager say, us being friends is purely a convenience. Nice. Feels good, doesn't it? But it's sunk in that, oh, well, we don't have to be friends. We don't have to be friends. But we do have to be colleagues. So we may not have all the same interests, but isn't that a good thing to have that diversity? But if I don't understand and respect and appreciate that diversity, things that make you you, then I'm not doing anything for that relationship. I'm not building that bond, and therefore I'm not building that trust and respect. You have a point in the back?
Well, kind of to piggyback off what Randy was saying, just come at it from a personal level. Know your audience, know who you're managing down to and how they respond to certain things. It just helps a lot.
It does. It helps a lot to know, instead of saying, how was your weekend? To the people on the floor, isn't it a little bit nicer to say, how was the soccer tournament this weekend? How'd you guys do? Sorry to hear about the Red Sox. Again. The theme here is that listening piece. We're trying to talk, we're trying to lead, but it's that listening piece. When people can know that we're truly, genuinely listening to them, it's going to make a difference. So managing down isn't really just always talking down. It is understanding what's going on. I once had this person who worked for me, and they were so frustrated. They got on my nerves, which apparently not hard to do way back when I was managing. They weren't performing. They were frustrated. And they weren't listening to me. So I, in turn, didn't listen back. So you know what I did? I did what any good manager would do, and I sat up next to a top performer, and I said, be them. Do what they're doing. And they came back even more frustrated. I can't do that. So I went back again, and I said, I don't get it. I don't understand. You're not trying. And he said, you're right. Because I don't know where to start. I don't know what's going on. This went on for weeks. And his performance plummeted. So the conversation I had, this epiphany on one weekend, is I sat down that Monday and I said, I'm going back to the basics. Where do you think your frustration starts? Is it talking to the customers? Is it the conversation itself? Is it selling? Is it the system? Are you technology illiterate? I don't know. But I broke it down. And I said, help me understand so I can help you. And he said, I'm not sure. I don't mind selling, but I'm not sure what product to sell to the right customers. I'm just so confused. There's so much information going on around me. But I said, you and I can seem to have a conversation now. So it's obviously not talking to customers. He said, no, that doesn't seem to be the issue. And we kept narrowing it down, narrowing it down. You know what it was? He didn't know his customers because all the little systems, all the things that helped him to get to know the customer were tucked in the background or a different system or a different platform or a different screen somewhere else. And so he was taught one way, but he wanted to learn a different way. So all those screens he wanted to see needed to be over here, but that's not what everyone else was doing. So you know what we did? We brought those screens up front. Top performer the next day, and they're all in. If you don't understand your person well enough and you're not asking the right questions, you will miss on communication. We were both trying really hard. We were both getting very frustrated. It's not about working hard, it's about winning. If you can have everyone ride your coattails when you're managing down, because you've learned that I can't run through that wall and have people follow, so instead of me to run through I'm going to have you guys run through the wall, and I'm going to ride your coattails. And I'm just going to go along with you. Well, that's the managing down part, but the managing your peers is a lot harder. When you see that they're struggling or you see that they're frustrated, it's a lot harder because you have no influence. At least you think you don't. You have the power of influence because you have the ability to give an objective point of view that someone may not be asking for. Unsolicited feedback is a gift. Give it and take it. We used to meet once a month as a collective group of managers. No one else was invited. Our managers weren't invited. We just sat and chatted and talked and beat each other up when we had problems. When we had struggles, we talked through it, we worked through it. I've never been on a closer knit team. Because as peers, we decided that we'd solve a lot of our stuff internally. I made a joke about the Red Sox, but what do you think their problem was in September? Lack of teamwork and struggles behind the scenes. They either didn't want to deal with it, or when they did, they didn't deal with it well. That brought them down. It will bring down any team if you're not willing to work extremely well. We're now working as a partnership, and I told her in that one-on-one conversation, you know what? I may end up working for you. But you also may be working for me. And it doesn't matter. Because we're peers right now, and we're working together. And let's just do what's right for the company and do what's right for our own internal organizations, and everything else will play out. If you have the right game plan and you have the right teamwork in place. Don't ever underestimate the ability of building that trust and respect with the people you work with. Managing up. So your manager says, you have a meeting with your managers. It's a focus group or something along those lines, and you're all sitting around a conference room, and there's stone cold silence. I'm not the first to say something. Does that happen? Why does it happen?
Nervous.
You can't even say it now. So if your manager is there, will your manager be writing some notes down saying, you should have heard what Tom said? And it's going to be held against me. Oh yeah, that fear is there. Is that fear real?
It can be.
It can be. But it only can be real if you have not already established that relationship with your manager. I've presented 3 or 4 times. Things went extremely well. But all of his time and effort needed to be rewarded. So I said, on our next go around, it's all you. I want you to present, and I'll take your back. And all of a sudden, the tables turned. He's worried about speaking notes. He's worried about these things. He prepared probably a little bit differently than being the support person. But during that time, he changed his preparation. So preparation is a key. His confidence grew because he had his manager's backing. And he felt that if he made a mistake, we're all going to learn from it. Because I told him that. And that's a piece of the relationship you have with your manager, that you feel comfortable enough that when you do make a mistake, you should get feedback on it, but it shouldn't be held over your head. Do you understand the difference? That's the point of being able to have that conversation with your manager and build that relationship with your manager, that you can feel good enough to say, I'm allowed to make mistakes. And when I do make mistakes, you're going to see that I'm learning from it, and guess what that means? I'm growing. So when I grow, you're going to see more improvement from me if you give me just enough rope to make some mistakes.